Welcome to Podkey Fantasy Football, where today's board is full of shaky hype and fragile upside. A lot of draft rooms right now are reacting to movement without asking what actually changed. That's where mistakes happen, especially with rookie backs, trendy tight ends and wideouts getting pushed up on vibes. The biggest trap in these backfields is treating uncertainty like hidden upside instead of what it usually is, which is multiple ways to lose. Trevon Henderson is the clean example. The ceiling case is obvious because we've seen the explosive version, and that 2022 stretch the host cited shows real fantasy winning juice. But the floor case is just as real. If Ramondre Stevenson is actually back to something close to his 2023 form, Henderson may not disappear, but he can get pushed into the kind of role that gives you exciting efficiency and unusable weekly volume. So Henderson isn't a bad pick. He's a high-variance pick, and the mistake would be drafting him like the contingent value is already yours. Jadarian Price has a different problem. The market seems to be pricing the first-round draft capital first and the profile second. The host's skepticism makes sense here. Limited college workload matters because it leaves open whether a player can really handle steady NFL volume, and goal line fumble concerns matter even more because coaches are quickest to punish mistakes near the stripe. If his ADP is sitting around 66, that price is asking you to pay before the workload is proven. You can still like the talent and still admit the market may be making an aggressive leap. Pittsburgh looks even messier. Jaylen Warren has the better explosive argument. Rico Dowdell has the stronger goal line case. And coaching familiarity gives Dowdell a believable path to more work than fantasy managers want to assume. When one back is better between the 20s and another is trusted near the goal line, the committee doesn't need to be 50-50 to hurt both players. It just needs to split the valuable touches. Katron Allen is the cheap version of this discussion. Once a rookie back slides into the 200 range after a bad preseason, the market is basically admitting the path is thin. At that point, the host's point is right. Sixth-roundish rookie backs are often overbought when they're exciting and perfectly fine when they're nearly free. Cheap upside is the right lens, not assumed breakout. Quentin Johnston's rise is probably the clearest case of price moving faster than evidence. If the ADP jumps 40 spots without a real depth chart change, then the burden is on the bullish case to explain why the underlying player is suddenly different. And the underlying metrics the hosts cited are still weak. Catch rate, per-game reception volume, yards per route, none of that screams breakout already underway. It screams projection, and projection is fine until you're paying for certainty. Ricky Pearsall is more reasonable because the move is modest and the price still lives in the late-round range where you're buying talent plus contingent opportunity. The injury narrative point matters too. There's a difference between accounting for health risk and reducing a player to a durability label. Fantasy markets often overcorrect when the headline is easier to remember than the actual role. Calvin Ridley's slide, on the other hand, reflects a lot of concerns stacking at once. Age, role ambiguity, poor team efficiency, and a very ugly recent catch rate. That doesn't prove he can't beat ADP. It means the rebound argument needs several things to go right at the same time, and late-round wide receiver is exactly where you usually want cleaner paths. Bonix is the more interesting discount because cheap rushing at quarterback changes the math fast. He's not in the elite rushing tier, but he doesn't have to be. If the market prices him like a low-ceiling pocket passer, while the rushing profile can quietly add weekly points, that's a real structural edge, especially in stacks where cost matters. Tight end is where context matters more than talent takes, because usage can swing wildly with personnel and play caller tendencies. Sam Laporta is a good example. The argument for him isn't just that he's good, it's that Detroit's multi-tight end usage could create more routes and more designed volume than a simple 5 to 6 target baseline suggests. But there's still uncertainty, because target distribution depends on who else is healthy and whether those packages produce the same way year to year. The optimistic case is supported. The locked-in case isn't. Colson Loveland is almost the opposite profile. The downfield usage is exciting because it creates chunk plays, but low screen involvement means fewer easy touches, and easy touches are often what stabilize weekly tight end scoring. So when the sample is only 6 starts, volatility is not a side note. Volatility is the profile. Brock Bowers is where people need to separate player quality from draft value. He can be excellent and still be overpriced if the position has enough depth and the scheme isn't guaranteed to funnel him targets the way people remember from isolated stretches. That's why the host's caution holds up. Waiting at tight end can be the better portfolio play, even if Bowers remains one of the best talents on the board. The Rams' note matters for that whole late-round ecosystem. If 3-wide usage fell from 94% to 72%, that is a real structural shift toward more tight-end participation in the passing game. That doesn't automatically crown Terrence Ferguson, but it does give his dart throw case substance. The size, athletic profile, and college production are enough to care when the role is almost free. Greg Dulcich and Isaiah Likely are the sharper sleeper bets because both have stronger efficiency arguments than their prices suggest. Dulcich still comes with the obvious health warning, but if the path to a primary role in Miami is real, the upside is worth the discomfort. Likely's advanced metrics are even more persuasive because they show a player already earning efficiently, and if the Giants expand his role, the breakout case isn't fantasy fiction, it's usage dependent, which is different. Emeka Buka's split is exactly the kind of stat line that forces you to ask what story the market is telling itself. If you emphasize the first half, you see a star trajectory. If you emphasize the second half, you see how quickly usage can dry up and how brutal that is when touchdowns vanish with it. The safest conclusion is not that one half was fake, it's that his range of outcomes is wider than an early ADP usually admits. DJ Moore is more scheme-sensitive than people want these veteran receiver discussions to be. If Joe Brady pushes him into that 7 to 9 target range, the touchdown ceiling is easy to picture. But the caution is fair too. Target rate erosion is more predictive than name value, and age-related decline usually doesn't announce itself politely. The upside case is coherent. It just isn't cost-free. A few of these veteran takes matter more for NFL team building than fantasy, but they still teach the same lesson. Counting stats and reputation can hide declining leverage. Jordan Love's 2023 totals sound strong until you ask how much was system, situation, and game environment versus bankable quarterback play. Ranking him as more of a mid-tier division quarterback than a true carrier may sound harsh, but it's better supported than treating raw totals as proof of elite stability. DK Metcalf has a similar tension. The contract says alpha receiver. The target share and coverage splits the host cited, say very good player who may not be driving offense at an elite level. Saquon Barkley is the classic line between player and environment debate. If offensive line play is giving you around 4 yards before contact, then a spike season has to be discounted at least somewhat when projecting repeat performance. And with TJ Watt, the chip block point matters because it explains why sack decline may not be random. Offenses adjust to great players. The question is whether the player still warps games enough to justify the price at his age, and that answer is less obvious than the name value suggests. The Tailgate draft board was somehow even meaner than the fantasy one. Spinach artichoke dip, sweet savory sausage, veggie platters, and processed dips all got labelled plate cloggers, which is blunt, but at least logically consistent. The preferred build was simple and sturdy. Meat, potatoes, basic sauces, food that actually feels like it belongs outside next to a grill and a folding table. The useful question this week is whether the price is moving because the role changed or because the story got louder. That's the difference between drafting upside and drafting a headline. Thanks for listening to Podkey Fantasy Football. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.